In 2021, we lost many family members, and you'd think it was COVID-19 related, but it wasn't. I started having nightmares. I'd wake up covered in sweat. I kept dreaming of death, that someone would die, but from a cultural perspective, death usually meant a wedding would happen soon. It started in July 2021. A close family member had a stroke. She suffered for 13 days and then died. It was devastating because she was like a mother to us all. The week leading up to her funeral was extremely haunting. Things moved, doors opened and closed. Her spirit was seen. It was horrible. Then, more nightmares. In August, an uncle died from a heart attack. Exactly 2 weeks after, we lost four more, who died 2 days apart from each other. September rolled around and three others died within the same week. October hit and another uncle had a stroke. He too suffered and died. Exactly 2 weeks later, his favourite brother-in-law suffered a heart attack and died in November. Our December started off quiet until we got a call that another uncle died. We lost 12 in 2021. Yes, I had more nightmares around those deaths too. We thought it was COVID-19, but all tests were negative. We thought it was old age, but they were all in their early 60s. We thought it was sickness, but none of them were ever in the hospital. Last week, I had nightmares too. My mom had shared that she kept having a recurring dream of a function with many people. 2 hours later, that same day, her estranged brother died. Yesterday was his funeral. He was 52. People keep dropping like flies. We don't know what to do or who's going to go next. All we do is pray and hope it'll be okay. Something that's been following us around since my toddler was born. I first became aware of it when I was taking a picture of her sleeping on my chest, and the face detection software detected three faces. I convinced myself it was probably a glitch or a reflection of some sort, so I left it as that. Curiosity got the better of me, and I took the same picture and ran it through a makeup app to see if I could pick up whatever it was. It did. It was a face with its mouth open. I showed the picture to a spiritual person who said it was an imp sent our way to destroy whatever peace we now had with the new baby. She helped us cleanse the house and gave us some protection wards. We said our prayers and hoped for the best. Fast forward to when she started moving around and had received battery-operated or voice toys. We've had to destroy many toy voice boxes because they turn on and will not stop even with the batteries taken out. It was her grandmother who heard it first. The baby's electronic swing would start on its own and play a lullaby. Subsequently, it was plugged off when not in use, but it continued, and then it started swaying. I opened the battery pack to see if there were demo batteries, but it was empty. On another occasion, her animal collection started making their sounds at inappropriate intervals. Her grandmother too was the first one to report on this, then I heard it myself. I thought that maybe it was the results of the batteries being old and triggering themselves, but there were no batteries inserted. The toy dog started barking in my hands. Its voice box was promptly discarded in a small fire, as for the other voice boxes. She was given a generational dinosaur toy, which had stopped working at least 15 years ago, but was saved because the outside was new, and is the beloved Not the Mama baby in the dinosaur TV show. Imagine sleeping peacefully and hearing Not the Mama repeatedly. That hadn't worked in over 15 years with no batteries in. This continued with many toys until it stopped for about a year and happened sparsely. It's following us around. We spent the night with a relative. Last night, her rocket toy lit up on its own, voicing, "Ha ha ha, let's play." It scared the life out of me. It too had no batteries in it. So this one is probably the most terrifying thing I've experienced. Back when I was about 8 or 9, and my grandma was still alive, my older brother and I used to visit her a lot. By a lot, I mean just about every other weekend. My parents divorced when I was 8. My mom won the custody battle, leaving me and my brother to see our dad every other weekend. It didn't take long for my dad to start dumping us off at grandma's. I don't have anything against him though. He had no clue what to do with kids, so I guess he figured we'd like it at grandma's, and we did. My grandma wasn't exactly the nicest woman alive, but she treated my brother and I pretty well. She, like most grandmothers, spoiled the crap out of us. I really loved her and miss her. Every weekend, Aidan, we'll call my brother that, and I were at grandma's. We'd spend the night. There were 3 bedrooms in the house: the master, the front bedroom, and the back bedroom. Aidan hogged the back bedroom, even though it was supposed to be for the both of us. I think he just kicked me out simply because there was a TV and a GameCube in there. Yeah, we were pretty spoiled by Grandma. Though, this left me to sleep on the couch in the living room. I was scared of every single room in that house. I refused to be alone, especially if it was in the back room of the house, where there were few lights. So imagine how well I fared in the dark living room at night. Not well. This, I believe, is where my bad sleeping habits started. I'd stay up every night watching TV, often going into the early morning. This did allow me to watch shows a 9-year-old shouldn't be watching. You know, thinking back on it, I never realised my grandma's house was haunted, so remembering a lot of creepy things now makes a whole lot of sense. To just get this out of the way, my grandma had a Ouija board just casually chilling in a dresser. She also mentioned a few times that the spirit of the house was friendly, not at all harmful. Yeah, sure, Grandma. It sure as hell scared the crap out of me several times. This one time, it will forever stick with me. So this night started off as any other. My brother locked himself up in the back bedroom. Grandma and her little chihuahua were tucked up in bed, and I was left alone in the dark as hell living room. My grandma was one of the many people who closed up the curtains at night, and the living room was really dark at night. The only light I had to see anything was the light of either the TV when it was turned on, or some eerie green light that I don't remember the source of. Bedtime, I think, was around 9 or 10 at night. I waited and listened for my grandma to see when she'd fell asleep before turning the TV on. I don't think I waited any longer than 5 minutes before the silence got too creepy for me. I turned the TV on and turned the volume down real low, so even I could barely hear it. The layout of my grandma's house is pretty simple. All of the bedrooms are in one hallway, the front hall. The front bedroom is right across from the living room. The master between the living room and across the hall from the front and back bedrooms. A bathroom is situated at the end of the hall, acting as a sort of a middle point between all rooms. The hallway itself isn't any longer than 15 feet in length. Also, another thing about my grandma's house is that it's really old, even back then. The doors were all made of thick cardboard. The back bedroom door was pretty much destroyed by my older cousins when they were younger. The front corner was coming off and made an awful sound every time the door was opened. This is important. Time passed pretty quickly from what I remember. I think I might have been watching a TV show I can't name, but I really loved it. The show was about a detective with OCD and was actually pretty good at his job. You might remember it if you were around in the early 2000s. Anyway, before I know it, it's already around 1 or 2 in the morning. That's usually the time they aired that show. I remember feeling it and hearing it before anything else. You know when you're not alone and you suddenly get a chill in your spine and your brain tells you you're not alone anymore? When your flight or fight instincts kick in and you've got to look around to see for yourself that someone else is with you. I felt that, and then I heard a sound. To me, it was like a mixture of TV static and the ringing you get in your ears when the room you're in is too quiet. It was soft at first, coming from the end of the hall, or so it seemed to me. I turned the volume down even lower, just in case my grandma had woken up and was ready to scold me. From where the couch was, I couldn't see anything past a little table that sat in the middle of the hall on one wall. So, I just had to listen. I think my brain has registered the sound as footsteps coming from the bathroom at the end of the hall. I remember my brain going from my grandma to my brother, since my older brothers loved to torment their little sisters. Mine was no exception. My heart was still hammering, and my instincts of fight or flight were still in high gear, though I calmed down a bit when thinking it was just my brother trying to scare me, or if he was just going to the bathroom. I had called out to him a couple of times before realizing that if it was my brother, I could have heard his bedroom door open. Remember that the back bedroom door practically screeched every time it opened, making it awfully hard to quietly slip out. And that's when the panic officially set in, and the presence began to move. In my mind, I imagined it to almost glide across the carpet, like the kind of thing you see in horror movies. I hadn't seen many at that age, so I honestly have no idea where it came from. I kept calling out to my brother, almost crying because I was so scared. When the static like ringing got louder, and I felt the presence at the end of the hall, I almost pissed myself. I couldn't move. I was so scared. I just laid there, waiting to see who it was. It was dark as heck, because at some point, I turned off the TV, thinking it was in case it was my grandma. So sitting there in the dark with a literal shadow looming at the end of the couch was enough to scare me, shitless. I flipped over to face the back of the couch and cover my head with the blankets. I remembered, though, miraculously, what my grandma had told me about seeing spirits and such. Just tell them you're fine, that they can go home. They aren't here to hurt you, they just want to check up on you. After chanting, "I'm fine, go home," about 12.5 times, the ringing stopped and the presence left. I remember checking after a minute of silence, seeing just the dark hallway. I wasted no time in launching from the couch and running into my grandma's room. And even after all that, I still slept on the couch. To start, when I was a toddler, my parents, older brother, and I all lived in a house in what was a cute suburban neighbourhood. It's all older now and not as modern. It was a nice house with a huge backyard, or so it seemed to me in my tiny 4-year-old body. But we had a creepy neighbour who had a great view of our yard from the deck in his backyard. His house was on the corner of a street, meaning the yards were perpendicular. Well, in the fence separating our backyards, there were small holes, as one would expect from actual wood, not fake stuff that most tables are made out of. I used to like to peep through a hole in the fence. This guy had 2 large dogs that would often jump the fence and run wild in the neighbourhood. Several times my brother, nephews, and I would have to run past his house because his dogs' heads reached well over the top of the fence. It was rare that his dogs were quiet and seemingly nice. Well, one day, the entire family was out back. I was doing kid stuff and ended up looking through the hole in the fence. I saw a girl who looked a lot like Shirley Temple sitting next to one of the dogs. It was really weird. It wasn't like she was far back on the deck or something. From how I remember it, it was like looking through a paper tube. It's hard to explain, but there was nothing around the girl and the dog. It was just them. I was more amazed in a childish way than freaked out. In my toddler mind, I was probably excited about the neighbour having a little girl who I could potentially befriend. Now, we get to skip about a decade and a half. Back in 2016, my mum and I were living with my grandparents. My mum, brother, and I had gotten out of a bad situation the year before, which left us in the basement of my ex-stepsister's best friend's family's basement. Yeah, it's a mouthful. According to the family, the house was haunted. The oldest daughter had experienced some things, such as someone sitting at the foot of her bed at night. I never did, and I honestly can't remember if anything paranormal happened. Most of the weird things that did happen could honestly be chalked up to paranoia or something else. Like I said, we moved in with my grandparents. It was late 2016. My brother moved in with his girlfriend at the time, leaving Mom and I to stay with my grandpa and grandma. Once again, we were stuck in the basement. The situation at hand took place during the summer of 2017. The greatest part about being the youngest in your family is being able to stay home alone while everyone else goes out to work. I decided to stay at my dad's house for a couple of weeks as a sort of vacation. My dad's a chill guy, so he doesn't expect much. Plus, it was good to get out of a crowded, tiny home. 5 people in a 2-level house that's practically a townhouse. Not fun. My dad did live in a pretty busy neighbourhood, with loud neighbours behind the house. Again, this might not be exactly paranormal, but I'm convinced it's something. It was nearing the end of my stay at my dad's, and like usual, I was left alone with only the bird and dog for company. I was sitting on the couch watching TV and writing when the doorbell rings. I know, it's such a normal thing, but it was odd. I wasn't too immersed in my writing that I wouldn't have heard someone walk up to the door. In fact, the dog should have heard whoever it was too. I checked out the window first, which had a great view of the front steps. No one was there. No cars parked out front or in the driveway. I knew I wasn't going crazy because the dog reacted to the doorbell too. She didn't growl, but she did a little boo and stood up. I took a few extra minutes to check around the house to make sure no one was around. I ended up chalking it up to a prank, probably from the kids who lived behind us. Another few days pass by and I'm back home, having completely forgotten about it. Until it happens again. Once again, at home, my mum's. I'm all alone with just the animals. Then, the doorbell rings. The dogs react. I get up and check out the window. No one is there. I wait a minute to see if it's a salesperson and they'll walk away. Nothing happens. I checked another window, same results. At that point, I remember what happened at my dad's, and I'm freaking out a little. I usually checked with my dog to make sure he heard it too, and that I wasn't going insane. Like I said, it might not be paranormal, but it's one hell of a coincidence. My mum thought it might have been my guardian angel, trying to tell me something. Don't know what the doorbell ringing could possibly tell me, but okay. The activity is getting worse. It's not just visual activity we're dealing with anymore, it's mental and emotional too. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how bizarre and out of the world this is all going to sound. You can choose to believe me, or you don't have to. We actually decided to clean up our spare bedroom to use as a gaming room and hangout area. I started to spend most of my nights there playing The Sims. I noticed our dog, Boozy, hated going in there. He'd growl and bark, try to hide under my blanket, or try to get into my lap. As much as he hated being in there, he still insisted on following me and being around me. Boozy started to get very sick, bone skinny sick. I'd feed him 4 cups of food a day and he just kept getting more frail and skinny. We ended up rehoming him because we couldn't afford to take him to the vet constantly. I wish we were able to keep him. There's been negative energy continuing to grow. Anger and frustration seem to be common. Stuff keeps disappearing. Cabinets keep opening, and the spare bedroom has this lingering rotten smell that travels around our apartment. No matter how many wallflowers or candles I use, I can't seem to get rid of it. I had the most vivid dream the other night. This sickly lady came into our apartment. I told her to leave and that she doesn't live here. She told me that it's her apartment and that she lives there. I told her that I had no idea who she was and to leave. She told me she knew who I was and who my boyfriend was, calling us by name, and that we needed to leave. I tried to wake up, but when I did, I saw this black liquid running up on my bedroom walls. That scared the fuck out of me and made me wake up for real. An old friend of my mom, who's a medium, came to her. I had no idea who this lady was, but she told my mom about the sickly old lady that was in my dream. Described her down to a T. She also was able to describe exactly what I saw in my dream. she ended up calling me, telling me that we're in danger. The sick lady that came to me in my dream wasn't evil, but was trying to protect us. She actually lived in our apartment before we did. This medium told me she died of cancer, and that she also experienced this dark liquid. She told me this dark liquid is a soul eater, and it doesn't just reside in our apartments, but in our whole building. Our whole building is its puppet ground. The reason why our side room smells rotten is because that's its nest. That's where the portal is. I've started to become more sick. I've had migraines for days and nothing is helping it. I've also been having coughing fits that make me not able to breathe, and I choke on phlegm that keeps coming up. The red marks I've gotten are from the black liquid that apparently keeps touching me. My boyfriend and I moved into an apartment 9 months ago, and we think there could be ghost kitties here. We have two cats of our own, and we've seen both cats acting as if they're chasing something that isn't there. Their toys have gone missing every now and then, but what's spooky is I found two of their soft toys under our kitchen sink behind a board that's blocking that area off. I only found them because I accidentally kicked the board down when I was doing the dishes. Recently, there's been activity that I don't think ghost kitties could do. Cabinets have opened, light and heavy things have been thrown. Our shower curtain moves every now and then. Electronics seem to die quick, and our TV brightness dims and brightens. I enjoy watching scary movies, and I decided that I'd watch one until my boyfriend got home from work. After the first movie was over, the energy in our living room felt different. I wasn't sure if it was because I was a little spooked from watching The Conjuring 3 or what. Mr. B, one of our cats, was staring at the corner with his ears back for a bit. All of a sudden, my beanie that was on the table flew at him, hit him, and made him run away to hide. That scared me a bit, so I went and stood in our kitchen for a while. While I was in there, a breeze flew by me. I decided I needed to step out because my stomach felt sick. When I stood outside our apartment, I heard one of the cats meow and the dishes move. I decided to go back because I couldn't leave our babies alone there. While I was sitting in the kitchen, one of the cabinets creaked open. This is where I almost started to cry. Luckily, my boyfriend got home a few minutes later. I've experienced things happening before and I felt fine, but the energy I've been feeling the past couple of days is making my stomach knot. Another thing that concerns me is that some of our things seem to go missing. Back in October, I knew I put my earrings on our bedside table before I went to bed. I wanted to put them back on a few days later, but they were gone. We thought maybe one of the cats knocked them onto the floor, so we looked everywhere in our room and we still haven't found them. We've also lost my boyfriend's main car keys. We have a big jar on one of the tables in our living room that I put our keys, wallets, and coins in. If my boyfriend places his things down, I always end up picking them up and putting them in the jar before bed. Well, he came home late one night while I was already asleep and put all of his things down on the coffee table, keys, wallet, etc. Woke up in the morning and everything but his keys was still there. I've deep cleaned our whole apartment and still haven't found the things and have gone missing. I've also noticed red marks show up on my skin that weren't there minutes before. These are just a few experiences I've witnessed. There's been a lot more. They only seem to be the most active around me. My boyfriend has only witnessed a few things happen to him, and most of the time it's little things while I'm in the room with him. I feel like the energy in our apartment has shifted, and now I start to feel sick almost every time I witness something happening. Is there a way to cleanse the negative energy I keep feeling? A few months back, I went on holiday with a couple of friends to celebrate my hen do. I ended up sharing a hotel room with my maid of honour, who I'm just going to refer to as MOH from here on out. We spent the first couple of nights exploring the town and drinking a little too much. so that by the time we got back to the hotel, we fell asleep pretty much as soon as we crawled into bed. The third night rolled around, and we all felt pretty rough, so we decided to take it easy. We had a nice meal, no booze, and watched comedy stuff on her tablet until it was time for bed. I woke up abruptly at 2 a.m. with the feeling that something else was in the room with us. Telling myself not to be stupid, I opened my eyes and stared directly at a woman standing next to the bathroom door. The first thing I noticed about her was her hair, black, and her shirt, green with white polka dots. This is important later. But the more I looked, the more I realised that she was all wrong. She was unnaturally tall, so much so that her head was level with the doorframe. The worst thing was her face, though. The only way I can describe it is to say that it looked melted, but that doesn't do it justice. Her teeth were huge, protruding out of her mouth. She was leaning towards me, beckoning me over to her and laughing. I couldn't hear the laugh, but I felt it. Now I'm going to pause here and say that I know what sleep paralysis is like. It's happened to me on and off since I was a very little kid. I wake up and can't move. I see stuff that shouldn't be there. This was not that. Firstly, I could move. Because initially I thought it was a weird dream remnant. I actually leaned towards her, trying to see her better. Secondly, when I do wake up seeing things, they disappear as soon as I close and reopen my eyes. So I closed my eyes and opened them again. Closed them and opened them again. And again one more time. Every time, she was still there. At this point, I lost it. Closed my eyes and screamed for my MOH to turn the light on. As soon as she flipped the switch, I turned to check and the woman was gone. I got out of bed and searched the bathroom just to be on the safe side, and it was empty. I've never physically shaken from fear before, but by this point, I was trembling from head to toe and couldn't stop. While I was pacing the room, my MOH was lying on her bed, awake but struggling to open her eyes. This was weird in itself because A, when she's up, she's up. I live in fear of sleeping in the same room as her because she's a light sleeper and won't be able to nod off again if I wake her. And B, she's a very protective friend, and under any other circumstances, if she heard me scream, she'd be at my side in a shot. Our conversation went something like this. Me, not wanting to sound stupid. I had a nightmare. MOH, it's okay, sweetie. The hotel is just messed up. I saw a woman. At this point, MOH sat bolt upright. Don't. Me, green, polka dot shirt. We stared at each other for a moment, then without saying anything else, grabbed some essentials and left the hotel. We then went down onto the beach and walked through the seawater, then managed to find a bar that was still open. When we sat down with a pint each, we finally talked. When I screamed, I had woken my MOH up from a nightmare in which a really tall woman with a melted face and huge teeth was pinning my MOH down onto the bed and screaming into her face. The woman had black hair and was wearing a green shirt with white polka dots. We didn't calm down until I booked us a room at another hotel. We waited out the rest of the night in bars and cafes, and when our friend finally woke up, we got him to accompany us back to our room so we could get our stuff and go. So that's my story. I still have to sleep with the lights on because I'm scared of what might be waiting for me if I wake up in the dark. So to give you guys some background, my whole family is pretty spiritually awakened. But out of everyone, I seem to be the one who's in the most touch with it all. This started when I was about 12 and got stronger as I grew up. A couple of months ago, I was sitting in my parents' bed while they were in the living room watching TV. The way our house is set up, I could see parts of the living room from my parents' room because there's a balcony right outside it that looks over the living room. Anyways, I was sitting in their bed with the door open, so I could still hear their TV and everything. But I noticed a shadow walk from my parents' closet to their bathroom. I wasn't paying much attention to its energy, so I just figured it was one of my grandparents who enjoy visiting me often. I said something along the lines of, I see you, or I can hear you, because I could hear the footsteps as well. Nothing else really happened. We have motion lights all over our house, so we don't have to turn all the lights on at night if we wake up for something. And all of the pets were downstairs with my parents because our dogs are too lazy to climb the stairs. But the lights in the room kept going off as if someone was pacing around the room, purposefully setting them off. I didn't mind. I just figured it was my grandpa saying hi. This was my first encounter with Jeffrey. I'll explain his name later on. My grandpa is the most active. When my mother is in the bed alone, because my dad's working night shifts, she can feel him sitting on the end of the bed. She gets creeped out by this and asks him to leave, and he usually does. So this is why I thought it was him at first. About a week later, I was talking to my mom about it and telling her how I always felt something in her closet. And she had told me she felt the same way. We talked about it some more and came to the conclusion that whatever was in her closet was not someone we knew and was not something that had lived on this earth. My mother told me how she felt this entity as a child and how it used to be attached to my grandfather and now it's attached to her. And she even sees him during her sleep paralysis. We both felt that it was more of a masculine figure and he wasn't a good entity, but he's never hurt us. That day, I decided to give him a name. I thought it would be something funny to take away any fear he might cause. I chose Jeffrey, but my mom later called him Fred or Frederick. Since discussing Jeffrey with my mother, it seems he's more present in my life. Jeffrey usually stayed in my parents' closet, but would sometimes venture out to the balcony. I would see his shadow up there, and thinking back to it now, I knew it wasn't my grandparents. But lately, he's ventured to right outside my room, which is only about 5 feet from the balcony, but he's there almost every night. It seems he's getting closer and closer to me. Maybe he's moving his attachment from my mother to me. There's another motion light outside my room that faces the stairs. No windows or anything that could be moving. He paces past my room, and the light usually kicks off and on about 3 times before he stops. Sometimes I feel him in my room, but I don't think he can stay long, or maybe he just gets bored. But like I said, I don't feel like he wants to hurt me, and every night I see him walk past my door, I tell him a quick good night and wish him a good evening. I believe he got into this house in the first place because I heard that 2 mirrors facing each other is a portal. But I don't know if that's true or not, so don't quote me. I do not feel threatened by him, and I don't see any reason to banish him. I won't hesitate if he leaves a scratch on me. I've been able to see ghosts since I was a kid. At first, they would appear as dense shadows out of the corner of my eye. After puberty, they began to look like regular people, clothed, and sometimes they even looked to be breathing. Sometimes their clothes look new, sometimes worn and faded, or dirty and tattered. If I look directly at them, I can't see them, but in my peripheral vision they remain, and I can see full detail. They don't speak, ever, but I growled at them once. Sometimes they know I can see them, and they try to scare me. That doesn't work. Not anymore. And no, I'm not crazy. No diagnosis of psychosis for myself or in my family. This is a gift and curse that runs in the family on both sides of my mother's family. My great-grandmother on my maternal grandmother's side could see ghosts like real living people, while my great-grandmother on my maternal grandfather's side had visions of family in distress or of the future. One great-grandmother I was raised with, the former, and one lived far away, and I only knew her by stories. Sometimes the gift skips a generation. My great-grandmother had the sight, but her daughter didn't. My mother had visions, but my strongest gift is sight. I sometimes have prophetic dreams, but they're hard to remember or figure out what they were until they come to pass. One of my cousins has visions, while none of his sisters have either a gift nor his mother. And please don't ask for lottery numbers, it doesn't work that way. The building I work in has a lot of activity. It's very distracting when you see someone and turn, thinking it's a customer you just walk past, and no one's there. It's frustrating when that happens because I feel like I've been tricked. My last experience happened at the beginning of March 2020. I could describe her. I still have a perfect image of her in my mind. She was about 5'3" tall, Asian, with long straight black hair hanging down to her waist. Very pale face with dark bags under her eyes, like she hadn't slept for a week. Wearing a grey hoodie with the hood up and black pants. Her pale hands at her sides. She was very angry and lingered for a while after I had first spotted her. It was the first time I could stand there and watch them for several minutes without losing sight of them, even after looking away and then back. The problem was, she knew I could see her, and she just stood there watching me. As I walked around, I could see her head turn, tracking my position, yet she didn't budge an inch from where she stood. While watching her, and without taking my eyes off of her, I reached over blindly and grabbed a phone at one of the registers, called my manager in the office, and asked if he could see her through the security cameras. He could see the exact spot she was standing, but she didn't show up on the camera feed. I'm looking right at her, right now, I told him, but no dice. He's a devout Catholic and believes me when I have an episode like this, but it still spooks him to no end when it happens while he's there. I warned my co-worker who came in shortly after this for the next shift, and she thought I was having or going to have a seizure and was hallucinating as a precursor. There was no hallucination, and I didn't have a seizure later. Sometimes I wonder if other people can see human ghosts the way I can, or if it's just me. Sometimes I wonder if I really am crazy. I don't consider myself to be most of the time, but when you experience enough crazy stuff, you start to question your own sanity. And I don't consider myself psychic. I can't see dead people on demand. They don't come to me and tell me things like in the TV shows. And if I could do any of that, I would never try to make a profit off of it. I don't know why, but I've always felt like that would be cheating and wrong to do. And professional psychics who make money off of their gifts have always made me angry. I swear this is true. Believe it or not. I've learned the hard way over the many years of my life thus far that there are some things that exist in this world that frankly don't care if you believe them or not. You can choose not to believe in the existence of city buses, but that won't make it hurt any less if you're hit by one. In 2015, I worked a couple of weeks at one of those Halloween stores that are in town for the season. This particular location was in an old Kmart building that had been empty for a number of years. A particular problem for this building was the homeless population breaking in to have a safe place to sleep out of the cold. My first day, I was put in the back area, shuffling stock onto pegs. Being my first day, I hadn't met everyone, so when I saw movement out of my peripheral vision, I didn't pay much attention to it. Way off in the back left corner of the building, outside of the double doors going into the old stockroom, I saw a man. A very tall, maybe 6'3", Hispanic, one of the biggest Mexicans I ever saw. Long curly dark hair, dark complexion, white t-shirt and blue jeans. I figured it was simply a co-worker I hadn't yet met, and didn't think much of it. A few moments later, I looked up and the fellow was gone. A shift later, I'm an opener. Our manager tasks a co-worker and I with going into the old stockroom to look for a cart for stock. We get back there, and a motion-activated light in the hallway on the other side of a swinging door turns on. Then the next. Then the next. My co-worker freaks and says, crap, it's probably another homeless person who broke in. Come on, let's go catch them and make sure the back door is locked. So we chase after the movements. We get into the hall, which has a door on either end, to see no one. But in the next area, where the back door is, the light's turned on. We run in there, and a stairwell leads up from this area to the old offices. The lights going up the stairs start turning on, like someone is going up, but there was no one there. Not a rat, a moth, or so much as a cockroach to trigger the motion sensors. We double check the back door and it's securely chained and locked. My co-worker turns white as a sheet and says, "That's it, I'm done. We're the hell out of here." A shift or two later, I ended up in the back area again, shuffling stock. From my peripheral vision, I see the same man again, but this time he's maybe 15 feet away. I paid attention this time and could make out the details pretty well. His clothes were dirty and he wasn't wearing shoes. The guy was just standing there though, not moving. And after a few unnerving moments of seeing him there in my peripheral vision, I look up directly at him and he's no longer there. That's odd, I thought, not connecting the dots. I just shrug it off and continue working. My final shift was on Halloween. I'm sorting merchandise between carts, putting broken stuff in one cart and sellable stuff in the other. The next thing I realise, someone is standing a foot away, directly in front of me. Looking down at the cart between us, I can see him perfectly in my peripheral vision. I could see the grime on his clothes. I could see him breathing. I knew at that moment if I looked up, he wouldn't be there. I suddenly got irrationally angry, a type of anger I've never felt. I say to him without even thinking, "I know what you are. I know what you're trying to do. I'm not afraid of you. You're not welcome here. By the power of the priesthood, I command you to leave now." He growls one guttural growl, and then is gone. No fading out, no puff of wind and smoke, just gone. At my current job, a year or two later, one of my co-workers and good friends is a devout Catholic. I told him about the ghost of the homeless guy in the old Kmart building, and he just stands there and stares at me. "Do you have any idea what you did and how dangerous it was? You exorcised it. You're not a priest. You should never have been able to do that. You're damn lucky that it was just a ghost and not a demon." I never even considered that, nor did I consider my words before I spoke them to the ghost. It was spontaneous, like muscle memory, or like I was being guided. My friend still says I was lucky and not to do some stupid crap like that again. Because I've been so busy doing stock work or pulling curbside orders, I've not seen much. But today, after 2 people had gone home for the day, leaving 3 of us, there was some movement in the back corner of the store, in the wine area. It sounded like small packages falling on the floor, and I know for a fact that no one was in that area. My supervisor and I were at the front in line of sight, and our stock guy was in the stock room. After the stock team member went home, it was just my supervisor and I. About 15 minutes before we left, I took the garbage to the back, and all the mobile units. My supervisor is in the break room washing something. I pass the break room and go into the office, take the batteries out of all the phones and plug them in. Then go into the break room to hang up my apron. "Supervisor, did you walk in here a few minutes ago?" "Me? No. If you heard a bang, that was me throwing trash away. I just walked past the break room to drop off the phones though." "What was that, 5 minutes ago?" "No, about 60 seconds, just to plug in batteries." His eyes widen and he looks at me for a moment. "Do you see that dispenser?" Pointing to the soap dispenser. The soap inside turned black, and when I started to wash it out, I saw someone walking behind me towards the lockers and in the break room. This is the first time I've been here since my break. I walked past the doorway to stow the phones, but I didn't enter the break room. Something is very unhappy that we're back to work. Looks that way. I didn't see the apparition in the break room, nor the oil-like substance in the soap dispenser. The soap is supposed to be almost a honey colour, not like black tar. It took him several minutes to try to clean it out, and he ended up just throwing away the soap dispenser. Welcome back to work, huh? So I'm 16 years old, and I'm turning 17 in about 2 weeks. My family, me, my mum and my sister, used to live in a different house before our current one. My dad died about 7 years ago, and it was just us for about a year. Around sometime in 2014, my mom met a man. Let's call him N, and he became my stepdad about a year later. He has 4 kids from his previous marriage. Let's call them W, A, J, and E. Our previous house was getting too cramped, so we all decided to build a new house that could fit all of us. The house got finished right before New Year's going into 2017. The land that we built used to be a farm and is basically in the middle of nowhere. Back in 2017, we only had 2 or 3 neighbours, but now we have 20 plus. The house has always given me a bad vibe, but the paranormal activities didn't start until around the end of May last year. I had seen a lot of videos on YouTube, specifically Sam and Colby, of people doing scenes with spirits. Needless to say, I was very intrigued and I wanted to try it myself. I didn't have a Ouija board, but I did have some candles. So at around midnight on my birthday, I went down to my basement, which is pitch dark, and lit some candles. I arranged them in a pentagram style and started to talk. I was asking all of the cliche questions like, is anyone there? And are there any spirits that would like to contact me? After about 10 minutes of silence, I started to get discouraged and gave up. I went to blow out the first candle, but was interrupted by a scooter being dropped on the floor. The floors in my basement are stained concrete floors, so this made a very loud noise. I was paralysed in fear, and I couldn't move for about a minute. After a while, I chalked it up to being a coincidence and blew out the first candle. As soon as I blew it out, the same scooter picked itself up again and fell down. At this point, my adrenaline kicked in, and I booked it for the light switch. As soon as I turned on the lights, a wave of relief washed over me. I picked up the scooter and carried it to the garage. They went to blow out the rest of the candles. But when I got back to the candles, they were already blown out. This probably scared me the most, because I know that I didn't blow them out, and I remember them being lit right before I turned on the light. That means that the wind from me getting up and running did not blow them out, and the AC was not on as well. That haunts me to this day. When I told my friends the next day, none of them believed me, except for one. My friend, let's call him Y, dabbles in stuff like this. He does tarot cards and does all sorts of paranormal stuff. He said that the next time he was at my house, he'd do a ritual to find out what was in my house. The next time something happened was on November 2nd, 2019. This was the day a bunch of my buddies came over for a guys' night. Since my house was supposedly haunted, my friend, let's call him L, bought a Ouija board. Unfortunately, Y couldn't make it to guys' night to do the ritual. That morning, when I was cleaning up in the basement, which is where the party was going to be, I heard a commotion from upstairs. I was home alone, but I didn't think much of it, since my cats like to chase each other a lot, and I hadn't had any paranormal activity for a while. When I go back upstairs, I noticed that one of my blankets from my room was in the hallway. This really scared me. As I approached my room with a kitchen knife, I noticed a sudden drop in temperature. The thermostat said it was 68 degrees Fahrenheit, but it felt like 30. I thought someone broken through my window and left it open. I was dead wrong. I turned the corner to find my door closed, which was odd, since I never shut my door unless I'm sleeping. I opened my door, and it looks like a bomb went off. Almost everything in my room was overturned, and it looked as if someone broke in. My lamp was on the ground, my pillows and blankets scattered randomly, my computer monitors laying down on my desk. Gladly, my bookshelf was tied to my wall, which most likely saved my TV. I wasn't nearly as scared until I noticed that my window was untouched and locked too. Then I noticed that none of my stuff was stolen, and there was a rotten stench that had not been there before. I searched the entire house for an intruder, but came up with nothing. There's no way that someone would have broken into my house. They wouldn't have had enough time to get out. The time between when I heard the noise and when I walked upstairs was a mere 90 seconds. Nothing in my house had been stolen, and only my room had been wrecked. The smell disappeared before my parents got home, and they didn't believe me when I told them. My friends believed me because I showed them a picture I took with my phone. Later that night, after hours of playing around, we decided to play with the Ouija board. I can't remember what time it was exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was around 3 a.m. All of us, except for two, gathered around the Ouija board. Since there were so many of us, only around 4 of us could play at a time, and the rest had to watch. While we were playing, a tennis ball got tossed at us in the direction of the two friends that weren't playing. We asked them to stop, but we were chilled by their answers. One of them was asleep and got woken up when we asked him to stop. The other was scrolling on his phone and literally had no idea what we were talking about. We eventually got into a conversation with an active spirit that called himself Cutie. He said he died in 2013 and knew one of us there. Everybody was confused since nobody knew there anyone who died in 2013. Except for me. My dad died in 2013. I remembered that I read somewhere on the internet that after someone dies, their spirit can become confused and can have semi-amnesia. We started asking him more personal questions, but he kept on focusing on me. He said that he was my dad. This made me stop playing immediately, so we said goodbye to the board and put it up. That basically killed the mood for the rest of the night. We all decided to go to sleep, since one of our friends was sick and nobody felt like doing anything else. Everybody else fell asleep with ease, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about that spirit, and if it was actually my dad trying to contact me. I realized that it was probably just a spirit that was feeding off of my emotions. As I was dozing off, I heard a sound that made my stomach sink like a bag of bricks. It was the sound of a tennis ball being tossed at me. Each time it hit the floor, my stomach pulsed and it echoed in my ears. It slowly made its way towards me and came to a halt as it hit my leg. I was paralyzed with fear. Every thought in my mind was telling me to get up and run to the door. And run as far as I could. But I couldn't. I could move my toes and fingers, but nothing else budged. I forced myself to go to sleep, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. I asked everyone in the morning, and my friend sleeping next to me said he heard it too, but he just thought it was one of my other friends pulling a prank on us. All of my other friends denied ever being awake and said they didn't hear it. I can still hear the booms of the tennis ball hitting the ground to this day. Ever since that day, little things have been happening that cannot be explained. Around 5 months later, we had another guys' night. Luckily, Y was there to do the ritual. After a couple of hours of recording our guys' night EP, we decided to goof off until it was 3 a.m. Most of my friends are not believers, and I completely understand their reasoning. When 3 a.m. rolled around, me, Y, and a couple of my friends gathered around the Ouija board. Y cut out a piece of paper that looked like a doll, while I poured salt around the board. He then said that there was one more ingredient: blood. We were all shocked when he started looking for a knife. We tried to stop him, but he was too fast. He grabbed a pencil and slightly cut his wrist. He squeezed out some blood onto the salt, then started to whisper some sort of satanic chant, while putting his head down on the board. My friends and I were just frozen. We'd never seen him do something like this, and nothing he ever did indicated that he was ever interested in this. He said that he's done this a million times and to relax. We trusted his word and went along with the ritual. We burned the paper doll, and Hall had to say something that we'd kept secret our whole lives. Then we contacted a spirit on the board. The spirit said that our ex-friend, X, would be in danger, and we'd end up saving him. We all decided to take this to here and let him back into our lives. The prediction has not come true yet, but it may have been a metaphor or something. I can't remember the rest of the night, and all of the photos have been deleted off of my phone. It was only half a year ago, but that's one of the only things I remember. Ever since that night, I've been having very vivid dreams. I'm not talking about deja vu dreams, I'm talking about real life dreams. For example, I had a dream about an entire day, like a 24-hour dream. I woke up, followed my morning routine, went to school, had practice, and went home. When I woke up from the dream, I was a bit weirded out. The worst part is that everything played out exactly how it did in the dream, including every single conversation, word for word. I aced the assignment in math. I skipped notes in science and history, and I led the conversation in English. The whole day went exactly how it did in the dream. Every single detail. It's like I can predict the future. Every once in a while, something will happen that will shake me, like radios going off in the night or unexplained footsteps. Lately, there's been a concerning amount of activity. The other day, the power went out in our house, and I decided to play piano in our basement. I propped a flashlight up on the music stand towards the ceiling, so it could illuminate the entire room. All was going well, until the flashlight was tossed off of the stand. It must have been around 5 foot from the air before it started to fall. As soon as it hit the ground, the power turned back on. I realized what had just happened and I freaked. I ran upstairs and told my siblings and parents, but nobody seemed to really believe me. The spirits are starting to become more and more aggressive. The past few nights, I've been having the same real-life dream. In the dream, I'm playing piano in the basement. I'm playing one of my original songs until I hear a noise coming from the bathroom. It's crying. I can't tell who it is because the cry is never the same. The cry will be feminine one moment, and then in the other, it's a grown man. Then it will be a child. I don't want it to hear me, so I slowly tiptoe to the bathroom. On my way there, I stub my toe on the cabinet. As soon as I do, the crying abruptly stops. I make my way over to the bathroom and open the door. When I do, a shadow figure emerges from the bathroom and wraps its shadowy arm around my throat. And I'm dragged into the bathroom. As soon as I'm dragged into the bathroom, I'm jolted awake. I don't think much of it, until I found myself playing piano last night. I was working on one of my original songs when the dream came to mind. I remembered everything vividly, and then I heard a horrifying sound. I heard crying coming from the bathroom. Adrenaline rushed through my body, and my stomach sank as I came to the realization that I was reliving my dream. I got up and grabbed the guitar that was right next to the piano. I knew it couldn't be my siblings, because I could hear all of them talking upstairs. I made sure not to stub my toe like I did in my dream, and stopped in front of the door. It took all the strength in my body to wrap my hand around the handle. The crying continued to wail out through the basement until I turned the knob. It almost seemed as if the door handle was a switch, and the crying stopped as soon as I turned the handle. I gathered all of the courage left in my body and swung the door open. I clutched onto the guitar and prepared to swing it at the figure, when I realized nothing was in the bathroom. I quickly turned on the lights and searched the bathroom. It was empty. A wave of relief hit me like a bag of bricks, and I slumped over against the wall. I had no energy left in my body, and I was sweating like I'd just run a 5K marathon. I sat in that bathroom for about 10 minutes, and then I got up and left. I came upstairs and found my siblings watching a movie that they had just started. I sat with them and watched the movie because I didn't want to be the alone. I stayed with them until the movie was done, and at that point, I had gathered enough courage to be on my own. I said goodnight and went to bed. It was only 12 or 12:30, but I didn't care. I was exhausted. The entities in this house are becoming more active. My sister seems to think that this whole thing is in my mind playing tricks on me, but I know the truth. I don't know how my house is haunted since we built it ourselves, but it is. Maybe the land is cursed or something, but I don't want to find out. I'm about to be a senior in high school, and after I graduate, I'm going to try and get out of here as fast as possible. When all of this started, I was excited to have ghosts and spirits in my house. I was very curious, and I wanted more. Now, I dread this house. It doesn't help that I'm forced to be in this house at all times due to the quarantine. I just want away with this whole ordeal. Back in 2004, me, my mum, and my cousin were getting ready for our trip out to Rhode Island the next day. By the time we were done, my cousin and I had decided to just stay awake, since we had to be up by 4 am for our flight anyway. We were downstairs next to the hallway that leads to the front door. My cousin was on the computer, probably using LimeWire, while I was sitting on the floor sorting through my Comic Con merch closet to the hallway opening. While I'm looking down, I see in my peripheral vision a woman standing in the hallway, and she's looking down at us. She was wearing a black Victorian-style dress and had a black veil over her face. I don't bother looking up because I'm slightly freaking out at this point, and eventually she disappears. What felt like at least 5 minutes, probably only 30 seconds at most. I look up at my cousin without saying anything, and he turns to me and says, "You see her too?" We start freaking out as hardcore, unsolved mystery fans do, and run upstairs to tell my mom. For the few years that we lived there, weird stuff happened at that house quite frequently. The end of the upstairs hallway always cold, random noises, and so many black shadows moving in the corner of my eyes. There was one point when my sister woke up with scratches that looked like 4 long claw marks on her back after she saw something the night prior. I just love this particular ghost story though, because I had my cousin as a witness. I just think it's odd, because my dad got it as a new build. We heard talk that it was built over an old cemetery, but who knows? I know for sure it used to be farmland. When I was around 13 or 14 years old, my great-grandmother used to collect dolls. One of the dolls I took a particular liking to because of how goddamn creepy it looked. She picked up on it and actually gave it to me not too long before she passed away. Fast forward to the story at hand. My 2 stepbrothers and I were sitting in the living room chatting late at night, around 1 am or so. For context, this is a cookie-cutter house, so when you walk in, you basically have to choose between going upstairs or downstairs. The living room is directly upstairs from the front door. There's a fireplace on the left-hand wall, but not much else to note since it was an open concept. Adjacent to the wall, there was the railing overlooking the doorway area, and in front of the railing is the couch. There's also a television sitting on the ground on the wall opposite to the couch. During our conversation, we got on the topic of childhood paranormal experiences. Joking around, I went and grabbed the doll from my bedroom and leaned it up on the shelf above the fireplace. I made sure when I put the doll up there that it was leaning securely so as not to slip off. Some things that are now important. The television is on, but it's just on the no signal screen. And because we were preparing to move, there were boxes and trash bags piled in front of the fireplace, at least 3 to 5 feet out. We're all sitting on the couch at the time this happened. In the middle of a story, my younger stepbrother was telling about an experience he had in the basement of a childhood home. The doll was flung forward from the shelf, landing a good few feet away from the boxes, meaning it flew a good 6 to 8 feet away from the fireplace. At the exact same time the doll made contact with the ground, the television shut itself off and turned itself back on. We never had any electrical issues in that house or with that TV. Needless to say, we pissed ourselves off. I know people are going to say it's possible that the doll has just fallen, but the doll flew forward off of the shelf, even though it was leaning backwards. And things that fall don't typically fall outwards several feet.